What if your flight vanished without a trace, or landed decades later with nothing but skeletons on board? From planes that ripped apart midair to aircraft that seemed to slip through time itself, these are not scenes from science fiction. Aviation is meant to be safe, but sometimes it veers into the inexplicable, where radar fails, logic collapses, and survivors defy physics. What happened on these flights? In today's video, we will explore 20 real-life airplane mysteries that have baffled experts and terrified passengers. Let's start. In 1954, a commercial airliner vanished without a trace, no distress call, no wreckage. For 35 years, it remained a mystery. Then in 1989, while searching for a different crash, rescue teams in West Bengal discovered the missing plane, Flight JL-50, in a remote valley. Inside, they found 92 remains still in their seats, remarkably undisturbed. Some held personal items, others sat calmly, as if frozen in time. But the real surprise came when 2 passengers were found alive, in deep comas, seemingly untouched by time. No one could explain how they survived without food, water, or care for over 3 decades. Investigators believe the plane had been taken over by inexperienced individuals who could not operate it, resulting in the crash. That may explain the accident, but not the survivors. To this day, experts remain puzzled. The case challenges everything we know about time, survival, and the limits of human endurance. What do you think happened to Flight JL-50 in that remote valley? Conspiracy, miracle, or a glitch in time? Or comment and chat with me. Sometimes a simple miscommunication can lead to tragedy. Thai Airways Flight 311 is a powerful example of how small errors can have serious consequences, especially in mountainous regions like the Himalayas. On July 31, 1992, the Airbus A310 departed Bangkok for Kathmandu. The flight was expected to be routine, but the airport's location, surrounded by high peaks, made the approach very demanding. Aircraft could only land from the south, leaving no room for mistakes. That day, multiple issues occurred at once. Kathmandu's airport lacked modern radar and used radio communication. The air traffic controller had just 2 months of experience. When the plane's flaps malfunctioned during approach, the captain requested to circle back. Unfortunately, a communication breakdown led to incorrect instructions, sending the plane toward the mountains. The onboard warning system tried to alert the crew, but they believed it was an error. When the situation became clear, it was too late to correct. The aircraft impacted terrain at an altitude of 3,500 meters. All 113 people on board lost their lives. The incident serves as a lasting reminder of the critical role that experience and clear communication play in aviation safety. If these sky-high mysteries had you hooked, hit like and subscribe to help us keep uncovering the unexplained. Some aviation mysteries remain unsolved, and the case of Stardust CS-59 is one of the most puzzling. For over 50 years, it intrigued investigators, not just because the plane disappeared, but because of a strange final message. In August 1947, the British South American Airways flight left Buenos Aires for Santiago, Chile. On board were 2 businessmen, a Swiss national, an Englishman, a Palestinian reportedly carrying valuables, and a British diplomat with important documents. The route passed through the Andes, but the pilot was confident they would clear the peaks. As they neared Santiago, the radio operator sent routine updates, then a final, cryptic message in Morse code, Stendek, repeated 3 times. After that, silence. The plane never arrived. For decades, the message defied explanation. Some believed it meant starting descent. Others thought it was a distress code or a misunderstood transmission. In 1998, Argentine mountaineers discovered aircraft parts buried in the Andes. Further searches confirmed the site through debris and items belonging to those on board. The aircraft had impacted a mountain, but the reason for the crash and the meaning of Stendek remain unknown. Was it a warning? An error? Or something else entirely? The mystery behind those 5 letters endures. Helios Airways Flight 522 remains one of aviation's most unsettling incidents. The Boeing 737 departed Cyprus for Prague with a stop in Athens. Shortly after takeoff, a warning horn sounded in the cockpit. The pilots mistook it for a routine alert, unaware it signaled a cabin pressurization issue. As the plane climbed, the air thinned. At 18,000 feet, oxygen masks were deployed, but by then hypoxia had already begun to affect those on board. The crew and passengers gradually became unresponsive as the aircraft continued flying on autopilot at 34,000 feet. With no communication from the flight, Greek fighter jets were sent to investigate. When they approached, they observed the cockpit and cabin still, with no visible signs of activity. Remarkably, flight attendant Andreas Prodromou, using a portable oxygen tank, reached the cockpit. Though not licensed to fly commercial aircraft, he attempted to regain control. As fuel ran low and the autopilot disengaged, he redirected the aircraft away from populated areas. It later impacted remote terrain. Investigators discovered that a pressurization switch had been incorrectly set during maintenance. This single oversight, combined with a misunderstood warning, led to the tragic loss of 121 lives. No aviation mystery has drawn global attention quite like Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. In an age of advanced tracking, how could a Boeing 777 with 239 people disappear? On March 8, 2014, the plane departed Kuala Lumpur for Beijing. It carried 227 passengers and 12 crew on a routine 6-hour journey. Near Vietnamese airspace, the transponder was manually switched off. Shortly after, the aircraft changed direction back toward Malaysia. Military radar tracked it over the Malay Peninsula before it vanished over the Indian Ocean. It then flew for hours without contact. Its exact path remains unknown. The search became the largest in aviation history. Dozens of countries use satellites, ships, aircraft, and underwater vehicles to examine millions of square miles. Only small parts, such as wing fragments and interior panels, have been found on distant shores. These suggest a high-speed ocean impact, but the precise location remains uncertain. Various theories have been explored, including system malfunctions, unauthorized interference, and navigational errors. None fully accounts for all the known details. What is known is that someone disabled the aircraft's communication systems and changed its course. Whether the actions were taken to manage a crisis or due to another cause is still unclear. The families of those on board continue to seek answers. Deep in the ocean may lie the final chapter of Flight 370, one of aviation's most enduring puzzles. In the early days of aviation, plane disappearances were more common, but the case of Pacific Airlines Flight 355 in 1951 was exceptional. The plane took off from Vancouver bound for Tokyo with 37 people aboard, mostly United States and Canadian military personnel. It was supposed to refuel in Alaska after about 45 minutes but never arrived. There were no distress signals, radar sightings, or reports of problems. The aircraft simply vanished. A massive search involving ships, planes, and ground teams scoured mountains, coastlines, and remote airstrips for 3 months. They found nothing, no wreckage, no belongings, no fuel, no clues. The disappearance led to various theories: interception by a foreign power, a crash in a remote area, or an unexplained mechanical failure. What made it more mysterious was that no one, on radar, in the air, or on the ground, saw anything unusual. To this day, Flight 355's disappearance remains one of aviation's most puzzling unsolved cases. Varig Flight 967 vanished over the Pacific Ocean in 1979 with 6 crew members and cargo worth over $1.2 million today. The flight carried 550 paintings by Manabu Mabe, a renowned Brazilian-Japanese artist, returning from an exhibition in Tokyo. The Boeing 707 departed Narita Airport for Los Angeles. At the controls was Captain Gilberto Araújo da Silva, a 55-year-old veteran with a strong safety record. About 200 kilometers from Japan, the crew made a routine radio call. Then all communication stopped. No distress signal, no radar trace. The plane was never seen again. Despite extensive search efforts, no wreckage was ever found. The valuable artwork raised questions, but none of the paintings ever appeared again. Various theories emerged. ranging from mechanical failure to navigation error, but none could explain the complete disappearance. To this day, Flight 967 remains one of aviation's most puzzling unsolved cases. No wreckage, no cargo, no answers, just an empty stretch of sky where a jet once flew. Kenya Airways Flight 507 is a tragic example of how poor decisions in challenging conditions can lead to disaster. On May 5, 2007, severe storms delayed flights at Douala Airport in Cameroon. Most pilots waited. But Captain Francis Mbai, 52 years old, proceeded with takeoff despite not having clearance in unfavorable weather conditions. The flight had 108 people on board. Shortly after takeoff, at about 300 meters altitude, the autopilot did not activate. Neither pilot noticed, and they continued flying manually through heavy storms. The plane gradually banked to the right. By the time the issue was noticed, it could not be corrected. The aircraft entered a spin and crashed into a mangrove swamp. The impact left no survivors, and the wreckage was scattered and difficult to recover. Investigators identified several contributing factors: unauthorized departure, failure to monitor instruments, and spatial disorientation and poor visibility. The incident was deemed preventable had standard procedures been followed and the weather delay been observed. This tragedy highlights the importance of caution, communication, and adherence to safety protocols in aviation. Air France Flight 447 shows what can happen when advanced systems fail and pilots are unprepared. On June 1, 2009, an Airbus A330 departed Rio de Janeiro for Paris with 216 passengers and 12 crew. It was a routine overnight flight on a modern jet equipped with advanced safety systems. 4 hours in, while flying through a storm over the Atlantic, ice crystals affected the aircraft's speed sensors. This caused the flight computers to receive incorrect data and deactivate key functions. Autopilot and autothrottle disengaged, leaving the pilots to fly manually in challenging weather conditions with unclear instrument readings. The co-pilot, responding to the situation, pulled the nose of the aircraft upward, reducing airspeed and triggering an aerodynamic stall. The crew did not recognize the stall in time. For over 4 minutes, the aircraft descended rapidly from 35,000 feet into the ocean. There were no survivors among the 228 people on board. It took 2 years to locate and recover the flight recorders from deep underwater. The investigation highlighted a combination of miscommunication, stress, and human factors triggered by a minor technical issue, an ice the size of a fingernail. The incident led to global improvements in pilot training, focusing on manual control and stall recovery. It reinforced that even in high-tech aviation, human awareness and decision-making are vital to safety. Some aviation disasters are caused by mistakes or malfunctions. Others raise darker questions. Egyptair Flight 990 is one of the most debated cases in aviation history. On October 31, 1999, a Boeing 767 left Los Angeles, stopped in New York, and continued to Cairo with 217 people aboard. About 30 minutes after takeoff from JFK, the plane was cruising at 33,000 feet when it suddenly dove toward the ocean without warning. The crew briefly regained control, but the aircraft plunged again and crashed into the Atlantic near Nantucket. Everyone on board died. The wreckage was scattered, and the violent impact left little behind. Flight recorders showed the autopilot was turned off manually, and the nose was pushed down. Cockpit audio captured First Officer Gamil al-Batouti repeating, "I rely on God" in Arabic while the engines were shut down. As the captain tried to recover control, al-Batouti appeared to resist. US investigators concluded the crash was intentional, possibly linked to personal issues al-Batouti faced at work. Egyptian officials rejected this, blaming mechanical failure and defending the co-pilot's actions. In April 2014, a 15-year-old boy in California climbed a fence at San Jose Airport and hid in the wheel well of a Hawaiian Airlines Boeing 767 headed to Maui. Hoping to reunite with his mother, he believed the flight was going to Africa. Unnoticed by airport security, he squeezed into the landing gear compartment, a space never meant for human travel. As the plane climbed to 38,000 feet, temperatures dropped to -80 degrees Fahrenheit. At that altitude, oxygen is extremely limited, and survival becomes highly unlikely due to the cold, low air pressure, and mechanical hazards. Yet, after 5.5 hours in the air, the boy was found alive when the plane landed. The ground crew were shocked to see him emerge conscious, though disoriented and severely cold. Medical experts described his survival as extraordinary. They suggested that the extreme cold may have slowed his metabolism, helping him endure the low oxygen levels. His young age may have also played a role in his resilience. Even more remarkably, he recovered fully after being treated for hypothermia. Despite facing conditions considered unsurvivable, the teenager walked away without lasting harm. Do you think these incidents have logical explanations, or are we dealing with something beyond science? Let us know your theory below. On December 28, 2014, Airasia Flight 8501 departed Surabaya, Indonesia, for Singapore with 162 people on board. It was intended to be a routine 2-hour flight, but it ended in disaster. About 40 minutes into the flight, the pilots requested a higher altitude to avoid storms, but air traffic control denied the request due to nearby traffic. Shortly after, the aircraft disappeared from radar without any distress signal. A major international search effort followed. Despite the Java Sea's relatively shallow depth, much of the wreckage remained hidden. Only 116 individuals were later recovered. Investigators found a malfunction in the aircraft's flight control system. The crew attempted a standard reset procedure by pulling circuit breakers, but it did not resolve the issue. The aircraft became difficult to manage and began erratic movements. The communication between the captain and first officer broke down during the emergency. Eventually, the aircraft entered an unrecoverable stall and descended into the sea. Tragically, there were no survivors. 46 individuals remain unaccounted for, and many families continue to seek closure. This event highlighted how quickly a routine flight can escalate into an emergency when technical issues arise and communication breaks down, even over calm waters. During the Cold War, the disappearance of a military bomber could cause serious international concern. In 1956, a B-47 Stratofortress vanished over the Mediterranean, becoming one of the most unexplained cases in military aviation history. The Boeing B-47, a 6-engine jet bomber, departed MacDill Air Force Base in Florida on March 10 with a crew of 4, en route to Morocco. The flight included 2 scheduled mid-air refuelings. The first refueling over the Atlantic was completed without issues. The crew continued toward the second refueling point over the Mediterranean Sea. However, when the tanker arrived, the bomber did not appear. There was no distress signal or radar contact. Search teams from several NATO countries covered thousands of square miles, but no trace was ever found. The aircraft was transporting 2 capsules containing material used in nuclear systems. Although not dangerous on its own, the material was considered sensitive. Various explanations have been proposed, including equipment failure or unknown interference. Yet the absence of any debris remains unexplained. In such a well-traveled area, one might have expected signs of an incident. To this day, the B-47 and its contents remain unlocated. The case was confidential for many years, and details remain limited. Somewhere in the Mediterranean, or beyond, may lie the key to this Cold War-era mystery. No aviation mystery has captivated the world like Amelia Earhart's disappearance. For over 80 years, her fate has remained unknown, inspiring countless theories and searches. By 1937, Earhart was a global icon. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic and had set many records. Her final goal was to fly around the world near the equator, covering about 29,000 miles. On May 20th, she and navigator Fred Noonan left Oakland, California, in a specially equipped Lockheed Electra called the Flying Laboratory. The trip went smoothly for over a month as they crossed South America, Africa, and Asia. By late June, they had flown about 22,000 miles and reached New Guinea. On July 2nd, they took off for Howland Island, a tiny Pacific target just 1.5 miles long. The United States Coast Guard ship Atasca was stationed nearby to help with radio and weather. Earhart sent updates for nearly 20 hours, but her final messages showed rising concern. She said they couldn't see the island and were low on fuel. Her last known message came at 8:43 in the morning. "We are on the line 157337, running north and south." Then silence. Despite having fuel for several more hours, neither Earhart nor Noonan was heard from again. A massive search followed, but no trace was found. The most accepted theory is they crashed into the ocean near Howland Island. Others suggest they may have landed on a remote island or encountered unforeseen circumstances. Despite decades of searches and analysis, their fate remains one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of aviation's weirdest and wildest stories. According to the legend, on July 2, 1955, a Pan American Airways plane with 57 passengers and 6 crew left New York for Miami. It was a routine flight that never arrived. No distress call or wreckage was ever reported. The plane and all 63 people appeared to vanish. The story continues with a strange twist. On March 9, 1985, exactly 30 years later, an unidentified aircraft reportedly appeared on radar over Caracas, Venezuela. It circled the airport in silence before landing. Airport staff were allegedly shocked. The plane looked brand new, with no signs of aging. Some versions of the tale claim the passengers seemed confused and frightened. The pilot supposedly asked for the date and location, tossed out a small calendar, then restarted the engines and flew off. The calendar was said to show July 2, 1955. According to the story, authorities confiscated any evidence and declined to comment. However, there is no credible proof this event occurred. No official flight logs, reports, or reliable sources confirm the incident. The origin of the tale appears to be Weekly World News, a tabloid known for fictional and sensational stories. On September 4, 1954, Flight 513 departed from Aachen, West Germany, en route to Porto Alegre, Brazil. The 18-hour journey included 88 passengers and 4 crew. The plane never arrived, and no trace was found. It was declared lost, and Santiago Airlines reportedly shut down afterward. Then, on October 12, 1989, air traffic controllers in Porto Alegre allegedly detected an unidentified aircraft. It circled without responding before landing. The aircraft was reportedly in excellent condition, raising questions. In some versions of the story, those who approached the plane claimed they found passengers on board who had not survived. The scene was described as frozen in time, with personal belongings untouched and newspapers dating back to 1954. However, there is no credible evidence this event occurred. No airline records, official reports, or airport documentation support the tale. The story appears to have originated from tabloid publications and may have been inspired by an episode of The Twilight Zone. Some aviation disasters leave more than wreckage. They leave behind lasting stories. One such case is Eastern Airlines Flight 401, which crashed in the Florida Everglades in 1972. Following the crash, some reports claimed ghost sightings connected to parts salvaged from the wreck. On December 29, 1972, the Lockheed TriStar left New York for Miami with 176 people on board. Near Miami, the crew noticed a landing gear light malfunction. While troubleshooting, they unintentionally turned off the autopilot. The plane gradually lost altitude and crashed into the Everglades. 101 people died, including Captain Robert Loft and flight engineer Donald Repo. 75 survived. The accident became a key case in improving cockpit focus and situational awareness. Eastern Airlines later reused undamaged parts from the crash in other aircraft, which was common practice. After that, some flight crew and passengers reported unexplained sightings of Loft and Repo on those planes. Witnesses described these as visual or auditory experiences, often tied to specific flight events. The accounts came from individuals within the airline and were taken seriously enough that Eastern reportedly removed the salvaged parts. Whether this ended the reports is unknown, but the case became a widely shared story in aviation folklore. Not all aviation incidents end in tragedy. Delta Flight 1425 shows how training and modern aircraft design can turn a crisis into a success story. On July 6, 2018, a Boeing 737 was flying from Atlanta to Baltimore with 154 people aboard. At 30,000 feet, passengers heard a loud bang followed by smoke in the cabin. One engine had failed. While such failures are serious, planes like the 737 can fly safely on one engine. Still, what passengers saw was frightening: damaged engine parts flapping in the wind and a bright orange glow coming from the engine. Some feared it was on fire. One passenger filmed glowing metal and flying debris. Inside, panic set in. Many texted loved ones, fearing the worst. Despite the fear, the crew stayed calm. Captain William Hickey shut down the engine and diverted to Raleigh-Durham Airport. Flight attendants prepared passengers for a possible emergency landing. Emergency crews were on standby. The landing went smoothly. Although the engine was severely damaged, the rest of the plane remained safe. Later, investigators found that a fan blade had broken, causing the cowling to come loose. The orange glow was likely hot air, and small amounts of oil burning off, scary, but not immediately dangerous. At 24,000 feet, the roof of Aloha Airlines Flight 243 suddenly tore off, turning a normal flight into a dramatic survival story. On April 28, 1988, a Boeing 737 flew from Hilo to Honolulu with 89 passengers and 6 crew. The 19-year-old aircraft was well maintained. As it climbed, flight attendant Clarabelle Lansing heard a rush of air before a large section of the fuselage ripped open. An 18-foot-long hole exposed the cabin to the sky. Lansing was swept out and did not recover. Despite the chaos, most passengers stayed in their seats. 8 were seriously injured, but many survived the initial damage. Captain Robert Schornsteimer and First Officer Madeline Tompkins worked to control the damaged plane. Drag from the open fuselage made it hard to steer. They descended to a safe altitude while monitoring engine trouble. Approaching Kahului Airport, the crew feared the landing gear might fail, but it extended properly. The pilots landed safely, and passengers exited using emergency slides. Everyone but Lansing survived. The cause was metal fatigue from repeated pressurization cycles. The incident led to stricter aircraft inspection rules. Flight 243 showed how training, teamwork, and quick action can save lives, even in the most extreme conditions. Vesna Vulović, a flight attendant, survived the highest fall without a parachute. On January 26, 1972, Jet Flight 367 broke apart at 33,000 feet over Czechoslovakia due to a suspected onboard explosion. Vesna was the only survivor out of 28 people. Still strapped in the tail section, she fell over 6 miles. The wreckage landed on a snowy, forested hill which cushioned the crash. A former medic, Bruno Hunk, found her and gave first aid. Vesna suffered critical injuries: a fractured skull, broken spine, legs, ribs, and pelvis, and was in a coma for 27 days. Doctors didn't expect her to survive, but she fully recovered, though she remembered nothing of the fall. Experts believe her low blood pressure helped her lose consciousness early, which may have helped protect her. Her seat location and the terrain also contributed to her survival. Guinness World Records recognized her fall from 33,330 feet. She later worked in a ground roll and described her survival as pure luck. Vesna passed away in 2016, 44 years after the accident. Her story remains a powerful symbol of resilience and fate. These 20 cases are just a glimpse into aviation's many mysteries. Despite our advanced technology and safety systems, some events in the sky remain unexplained. Have you ever had a strange experience while flying? Share it in the comments. Your story could become part of aviation's next mystery. If you enjoyed these stories, like the video and subscribe for more investigations into the world's most puzzling phenomena. Until next time. Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.